Hello, my fellow geeks. Welcome to episode number 51 of the Indian AvGeek. My name is Vishal Mehra. Hope you all had a good Navratri and Durga Puja celebrations. Most listeners would know the man I am about to introduce, primarily due to his prolific nature and his widespread writing duties. But for those just joining in, Ameya Joshi is the mastermind behind networkthoughts.com, the go-to destination where aviation data gets the spotlight treatment it deserves. By day, he's crunching numbers on airline networks, fleet strategy, and route economics. By night, well, he's probably still analyzing flight schedules because that's just how he rolls. This man has been tracking Indian aviation's every twist and turn for nearly 2 decades, from his airline days at Kingfisher, Go Air, and AirAsia to becoming the independent voice the industry did not know it desperately needed. His insights were so sharp, they literally made it to India's National Civil Aviation Policy of 2016. Ameya, so happy to welcome you to your third appearance on the Indian AvGeek. You were there when I started this on episode 1. You were there for episode 10. And now for the auspicious episode 51. I've told you this before, but I think it's about time I share this with everybody listening as well. You are the Shah Rukh Khan to my Karan Johar. Always the one appearing for most important episodes and season openers.
Thanks, Vishal. Thanks for having me over for the third time. First of all, congratulations. 51 is an achievement. It's very easy to start things. There are a lot of people who've started this, but to follow up, to get some very good people on this podcast and keep going is an achievement. And 51 is a number. I'll be honest, I am delayed when it comes to listening to this podcast, but there are such wonderful people that I make notes after listening in. That is one of the reasons why I need a lot of time to listen and make notes, and I see it in batches. So it has been wonderful listening to it, and absolutely more wonderful to be invited here for the third time. So thank you very much.
That all is so kind of you to say, Ameya. All right, let's get down to the show, and I want to start with my home airport. Let's talk about Delhi Airport before we move on to other topics. Delhi recently said its international to international transfers increased by 244% from 388,000 in 22-23 to 1.34 million in 24-25. Though, to be fair, they're comparing numbers from around just after the pandemic era, which would obviously show a massive jump. However, I must also add the impressive 5x jump from IndiGo connecting Bangkok and Phuket with Almaty, Tashkent, Tbilisi, and Baku. Air India, of course, is making its own moves aplenty. Amir, what do you think of Delhi's rise as an international hub?
Well, Delhi has been phenomenal since 2008 or 2009 when T3 came into existence. Uh, then integrating T3 with T2, of course, different international and domestic, but restarting T2 in a way, and then expanding T3, expanding T1. Delhi has been phenomenal. They've put in a lot of efforts to get there. The only airport in the country and handful in the world to have a capacity of 100 million. So a lot of things work well on what Delhi has done. But when we look at these numbers specifically, we need to take it with a pinch of salt, simply because 2022 was still in the COVID era, not fully over COVID. So if that is the base, then it's not a great comparison to say 244%. The numbers are right, no doubt. We need to compare it year over year, how it was the previous year and this year, and then how it was pre-COVID. So sometime around to 2010, Air India moved lock, stock, barrel from Mumbai to Delhi with T3 as the hub. Beautiful network coming up with the afternoon departures to Europe, a hub in true sense being shaped up, and that has obviously helped it. But Air India, the hub was traditionally focused towards Europe. It wasn't the east to west and vice versa. It was more of domestic to international and international to domestic. So beautiful, no doubt. But then this, it's only now that Air India has made changes in February to have a connection from Australia, from Southeast Asia, added more points to go to Europe. And Indigo, as they started building the hub, they started focusing on I to I more over D to I. There is a reason to it. That reason being, Indigo has fragmented operations at Delhi. So if you are a passenger coming from a point in India, landing at T1, then you have to rely on a DTDC bus to take you from T1 to T3, increasing your transfer time and reducing the ease of transfers. So that's not something which a average passenger likes. Whereas when you're talking international to international, it's still under one roof at T3. You have a transit area which is faster. You don't require a transit visa in India for this. So obviously that's increasing. And last point to add to that, from a Delhi perspective, there are things which are possibly beyond the control of the airport or the airport operator. So the rules which come from BCS, a government agency, immigration, all those things they may want to push, but in the end, it's the government which takes the final call. It's the rules which are framed at government level which will work. So, inter-terminal transfer train on the likes of say a Frankfurt or a Singapore will significantly change how Delhi functions. How soon will we get it? Will we ever get it? The answers are still open, but hopefully we reach there.
Yeah, hopefully we will reach there. Staying on the eye to eye business, how significant is the Central Asia Southeast Asia corridor? That corridor's success for Delhi's positioning? And do you think there are other similar opportunities for connecting underserved international routes?
Well, definitely Central Asia to Southeast Asia is one part. Uh, Europe to Southeast Asia is another, which also Delhi tries to get. Now, Central Asia is opening up, right? All former five Soviet republics, two a little advanced in opening up, Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. The other two on the verge of opening up, Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, and one completely closed, which is Turkmenistan. So these four are opening up. They've eased their visa policies. They're open to having tourism, and you also see a lot of airlines in Southeast Asia expanding. So if you look at AirAsia X from Kuala Lumpur, they've launched flights to Almaty, increased frequency. They are on the verge of launching flights to Tashkent. Now, these are two places where Indigo has been flying, not currently because of the Pakistani airspace closure from Delhi. And of course, Indigo flies to Bangkok, Phuket, and Singapore, and so on from Delhi. So this corridor, you get a good amount of transfer passengers because the Central Asian republics are actually trying to get passengers from Southeast Asia. It's the inbound traffic who wants to see the Silk Road places or new places which have come up in Central Asia and so on. The next set of traffic is actually huge chunk of traffic which moves between Bangkok, Phuket, Singapore, and Europe. And that's what eventually Indigo would vie for. But today, Air India is, of course, catering to a lot of it. And I think with Delhi, whatever I've read in the news, that one more pair is going converted to international from domestic. Uh, this is all this eye to eye connection which is going to get promoted to a significant extent. Maybe put in some duty-free offers, some international restaurants, and then you suddenly have a transit facility which is attractive for people beyond the cost of the ticket. And that's where it's going to matter for everyone.
What else do you think Delhi Airport needs to do to get more competitive?
Well, I think T3 now looks a little dated, to be honest. Opened in 2008, the carpets are not there. You have more international restaurant brands catering to passengers at Bangalore T2 today than Delhi, which is not just, have expats in Delhi, you have a bigger airport, you have the whole government machinery functioning out of Delhi. So I have always felt that Delhi needs to have a lot of these globally well-known brands in its retail as well as food and beverage portfolio to make it more attractive. Because people who transit at, say, a Dubai, a Singapore, a Hong Kong, or Frankfurt, London, you always have something in mind that this is unique here. So today that piece is missing when it comes to Delhi. It's neither the duty free nor the food or the retail option which one would look at when you are transiting, especially from a place like Southeast Asia or Australia, because you need to be a step ahead of them if you want to make it attractive.
Couldn't agree more. I absolutely echo your sentiments. I really do hope Delhi and GMR up their game, not just in F&B but overall upkeep and aesthetics, especially as far as Terminal 3 is concerned. Let's see if they do something about it in the times to come. Another airline for whom Delhi is massively important is Air India. How is Air India building up Delhi for European connections, especially to smaller stations within India as well as other places in Southeast Asia?
Right. So I think they've now upped their game. They're flying to Gaya. They will start flights to Jaisalmer. They've had these usual flights to Jodhpur. They fly to Bhuj. So all of these connects to their international bank to Europe. Now, beyond Air India, there are multiple ways of looking at numbers. And I keep saying this that numbers are like Rubik's Cube. You turn it, the color changes, and then the interpretation changes. So you have to look at numbers really in a very different manner, and every manner will throw up some new things. So the foreign tourist arrivals in India are still low than what they were pre-COVID. And of course, there are multiple reasons for it. But the fact is, we are lower than what we were pre-COVID. Now, this is good to attract passengers, to give them that service to go to these places. Uh, how many additional or incremental passengers can you get is what will dictate. And it's not just Air India which is responsible here. They're giving you a good funnel of connections. How much can the government attract, be more in the market with more of Incredible India type campaigns and ensure that more people come in? Air India is just a provider of services. So when it comes to the domestic connections, the hub building is coming out to be very, very well. One challenge that, of course, needs to be seen is what happens with the Air India Express and Air India collaboration cooperation, because you wouldn't want to be an airline where you have a sister airline flying or a subsidiary flying, but not able to book it, or having to book it separately and not have the seamless transition. Now, if I of course read on social media that Air India Express is moving out of T3, they're moving to another terminal in at Delhi.
You are absolutely right. Air India will be relocating 60 of its 180 daily domestic departures to the renovated Terminal 2. Air India Express will also be moving all its domestic operations to the newly renovated Terminal 1. All international flights of Air India and Air India Express will continue to operate from T3, and all of this is effective October 26, mainly done due to Terminal 3's expansion of international operations.
Which gets them to a similar position like Indigo, that you are across terminals and then transfer of passengers is a challenge. So that is something which again goes back to Delhi airport. How do you handle it to ensure the best of connections? And of course, Air India wanting to get back their brand name, especially after the unfortunate events in June. So people still want to come back and say that, let's fly Air India. The last point is how soon can you induct capacity? And Air India has, miserably failed on those counts. We've seen planes go out of the fleet, but the additions are still very slow. The revamp is still very slow, and I'm sure the owners know this. I'm sure it's not to their liking as well, but the fact on the ground is it's slow.
It is almost like the perfect storm for Air India. So many factors affecting their ambitions and their growth in the global market as well. Staying on Delhi, as per OAG's recent Mega Hubs report, Delhi is now the 39th most connected airport globally. If you ask me, not a number to be terribly proud of, especially when we were just discussing how Delhi is one of the very few airports globally with 100 million annual capacity. What specific route gaps do you see, Ameya, that could improve this ranking and transit traffic further?
Well, there are a handful of gaps, and I think those gaps are primarily towards the US side, right? which requires capacity, which today Air India does not have. So if you look at the other hubs in the region, let's take Singapore, let's take Dubai, Doha, Abu Dhabi, all of them have a very significant presence to the US. Whereas we are connected to limited points, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Newark, Washington, which isn't operating anymore, uh, so on and so forth. And we've always heard over the last 3 years that Air India will launch services to Dallas, Boston, Los Angeles. Of course, the airline never confirmed this, but multiple reports coming in, and no planes right now to do that. So
And
the
we saw
missing.
LinkedIn job openings also, by the way.
Yes, exactly. So we've seen that. So the challenge is actually, more flights to the US and more connections to the East. And East, I think Manila comes online on 1st of October. So you have one point covered, but now you're mostly covered when it comes to the major points. So now the low-hanging fruits from Jakarta to Singapore, Bangkok, Phuket, all of that is there. And it's, not Jakarta, because Jakarta they've not launched. Nobody has launched the Delhi Jakarta yet. So that's one of the low-hanging fruits. Uh, Again, beyond that, it's going to be the US. Very few points in Europe that will see expansion in immediate term. So as long as you have planes to fly nonstop to US, the connectivity index is going to go up. And I think this was the time, because the American carriers are not able to fly over Russia. And if Air India would have had planes right now, it would have been such a beautiful network that would have come up, where you are flying faster than what the American carriers can, and so on. The Pakistani airspace closure actually changes it. That's a long-term threat to Delhi as well as Air India and Indigo, because if this continues, or this happens at a higher frequency going forward, it's a geopolitical tool which Pakistan is using. And then you have a challenge where the transfers will become a challenge, because you will not be competitive enough with foreign carriers, or you will be forced to move to Mumbai or Navi Mumbai, where you still carry traffic from Australia, get it to India or some other point in India, and go beyond that. But the kind of volumes which Delhi generates, very difficult for other airports to generate, because you cannot sustain from a network planning perspective purely on transfer traffic, unless you are Emirates or Singapore Airlines, where you still have a significant local chunk of traffic which is coming in. You sustain a lot of the on the origin destination traffic, and that's what Delhi gives a population like no other. So no,
Right.
hopefully soon it will increase.
What about Africa? Don't you think that region could also do more with connections from Delhi?
Africa, yes, no doubt. But if you look at top airports and you sort it by the volumes which are generated and the money on offer, because you have to look at it from a profitability perspective as well, then you realize that US has much more potential, though it's a longer flight, than what it is to Africa, than say Africa. So in Africa, you're already competing with the likes of Ethiopian, Kenyan Airways flying to Mumbai, and so on and so forth. We have had all news reports talking about issues with repatriation of funds from places like Nigeria, challenges on the security front at few places. So when you are planning, you look at it holistically and not just by sorting the numbers and the opportunity there. What is the security situation? How is it from a layover perspective? How is it from a transit perspective, and so on? And let's say, we know Air India is pulled out of Delhi, Nairobi, and if you look at it, there has to be a reason. Of course, the reason could be shortage of planes. But how does a airline plan? When you're looking at pulling out something, you have to look at it from a profitability perspective. You don't go and pull out your most profitable flight just because you want a plane. You will start by pulling out your least profitable ones or the loss-making ones.
And
And these
that's what
things,
happened with
yeah.
Washington, D.C., I'm guessing, right?
Absolutely. That is what I would assume as well. And then there are factors. I mean, you are flying extra because of the airspace closure, but it all adds up on the cost side. And at that cost, whatever is your revised cost, if you have to pull out of something to ensure that you have ample planes, you will typically pull out the loss-making ones or the least profit-making ones, and that's an indicator, I think, from Indian carriers doing it. Not many foreign. I mean, when we look at the connectivity index, it's not just Indian carriers, it's foreign carriers as well. And not many African carriers are also launching flights to Delhi. Again, how long the flight is, what is the typical Indian origin people from Africa, right? They're more around, more around the region of Gujarat. So you would have flights coming to Mumbai where it's easier to connect to Gujarat than Delhi, fly longer. So all of these factors get into the way for connectivity.
Let's look 10 years ahead. What's your boldest prediction for Delhi's role in global aviation?
I think Delhi would cross 100 million and it would be one of the top five airports when it comes to 100 million. So, if you look at it from a very different perspective or the Indian Jugaad perspective, most of the Indian airports have pushed above their weight when it comes to handling passengers. X number is the capacity. There are airports which have operated beyond that. Then airports have been innovative in trying to find out ways on how you can operate higher with the same infrastructure by doing some self-service check-ins and making some changes to the retail zone or the immigration zones and so on and so forth. And I think Delhi definitely does that time and again. With four operational runways, seat of government being Delhi, even with Jewar coming up, Delhi is going to be in the top 5, 10 years down the line.
Staying on Jaywar, what are your expectations from soon to be opened DXN? Hopefully, in the next couple of months.
I think, as in my personal opinion, is that DXN is going to be smaller and slower when it comes to starting, simply because of the distance where it is from, the nearest highly concentrated civilization, which is possibly Greater Noida. Connectivity, of course, is helpful, but you have a new airport. You have to attract airlines. You have to give them, discounts to make it attractive and come there. Where is the immediate population which is there? The airlines have to make it more attractive for the population to come to DXN over Delhi. Of course, there will be new airport, hence people are coming, certain additional technology advancements for which people are coming. But from a geographical location perspective, it's going to be a slower growth as compared to some of the other airports which are coming up. And if we see Mopa, the first place where we have two airports, again, it's a state not exactly comparable, but the closest in terms of comparison. Then you have a case where the initial uptick was very high and then you had a plateau and then in some cases you even had negative growth which came in. Also, Delhi has prepared very well for Jawar's inauguration. So Delhi is now all four runways operational, almost 100 million capacity operational, converting more international peers. So you have a competition which is geared up to open, and at a place where they say, "I'll give you something better. Why do you want to move?" So incremental capacity, yes, but movement of international flights, which is more of a bread and butter for Delhi right now, looks a little difficult at the moment for me.
And what about NMI getting inaugurated in the next few days? Of course, I'm talking about the Navi Mumbai International Airport, but probably the commercial operations might take few weeks to take off.
Well, Navi Mumbai, on the other hand, is a completely different game because Mumbai did not have additional capacity for last many, many years. It has been congested. Jet
Yes,
Airways went down, capacity consumed. Go Air went
exactly.
down, capacity consumed. So the city is waiting for new flights. Also, Navi Mumbai, the geographical location, and because of the Atal Setu and other things which are almost ready, is way better connected than what uh, Jewar is right now, right? From a civilization to airport connectivity, and that's where they stand out. Other thing that I've done some calculations, I am expecting Navi Mumbai to reach its capacity of 20 million passengers within the first year of operations. And they'll have to really hurry up with the second phase and third phase. And I'm sure the um, operators would find funding for that. The challenge will be just the lead time needed to actually build that. You can have a lot of money, but it still takes as much time as it takes to build a terminal and make it operational. So I think Navi Mumbai is going to fly much faster than uh, Jewar.
Ameya, when do you think DXN, Jewar Noida Airport, will be able to use its full capacity of 12 million passenger movements?
I think it would take about 3 years to reach 12 million for Jewar, and it would take the first year itself for Navi Mumbai to reach 20 million. And partially it would also be because Mumbai Airport wants to close down its Terminal 1, and of course, people will move to Navi Mumbai. So that's just a partial one. Uh, but I think Navi Mumbai is going to fly faster.
And that's a perfect segue to where we are going next, Amya. How do you think airlines should strategically position themselves for this capacity shift? Should they wait and preserve slots, or should they be building a secondary hub strategy?
I think it's going to differ for the two main groups, Air India and Indigo, and it will differ significantly. Um, I think for Indigo, it's additional, completely incremental that will come up. Whereas for Air India, it will still try to shuttle between, can we have express at both places or express at one and Air India at another? From a very long-term perspective, I think it should become like two airports at Tokyo or two airports at New York, and one group should just move on to that. And I would expect Indigo to move to Navi Mumbai and Air India to stay at where they are right now, because the nature of transfer traffic which you can manage by being at one airport is simply huge, and a lot of it will also depend on the partnerships with Indigo gets into, and the nature of international hub that it intends to build with the 350s over the next uh, 5 years or so. Until then, I think people are going to be at both the places, judge how things are. If you have a terminal where the transfer is much easier at Navi Mumbai, Indigo has an advantage which today Air India has at Mumbai, being under a single roof. And that is something which will have, much advanced ranking from an airline perspective as compared to a inter-terminal transfer. This is applicable for domestic and definitely more applicable for international.
Well, we are a few days away only from peak festive period. How should airports across the country and airlines collaborate to smoothen out peak season constraints and improve punctuality and service?
Yeah, I think there are two aspects to that. I've already started seeing posts on social media on how a international destination is cheaper than a domestic destination for Diwali. So that's one part which comes up, and the second is of course airport, as you rightly mentioned, airport congestion, be it at security, be it at immigration for international travel, or the operational challenges. Uh, I think, it has always been a difficult thing from both airline and airport perspective to handle it. Uh, the idea is effective communication, because you have people who carry extra luggage, especially during this season. Could be gifts, could be just clothes, could be holiday travel, whichever. And that's where the bottlenecks start, right? From check-in, where you have extra baggage, to security, where you have to get all of that out, and then leading to delays for boarding because airlines want you to check in that additional luggage since you don't have place in the aircraft, and it just leads from one flight to another across the day. I think important is communication. If you can, as an airport, if you can have a weighing scale outside where it's very clear that, your baggage, your airline allows, say, 15 kg one bag, just weigh it yourself and then get onto a line. And airlines looking to have separate counters where they are handling extra baggage, and have counters which move fast where the baggage is within the limits. Uh, these are some innovative things which airlines and airports together have to come up with to really speed up things. And that can only happen when you have effectively communicated it to the passenger, because today we see more often than not, passengers will be all within the limits, then go inside and do so much purchasing at the retail section of the airport that you turn up with two bags at the gate, but you had turned up with just one at check-in, and then the airline doesn't let you go in most of the times, and then that's where the whole thing starts getting delayed one thing at a time. So let's see if this season is any different or it's going to be the same story again. Uh, OTP, yes, I think one of the major factors in Indian skies, but with two players having nearly 90% market share, I think people don't have much choice. So it's for the airlines to ensure that they stick to better operations and ability to maybe swap planes in worst case scenarios, and ensure that passengers are happy.
Ameya, we have discussed SpiceJet in all of our shows together. Last time we spoke, they had secured a lifeline, and unfortunately, now they seem to be going down the drain again. Where do you think their future is headed? Will they remain India's fourth largest airline for long, or do you see somebody like Star Air usurping them?
Well, I think come December they may be ahead of Akasa. Weird prediction, but the reason I'm saying this is they have or they are on the verge of inducting as many wet lease planes as they have operational from their own fleet, and that would take them close to 40 odd aircraft being operational, which is going to be more than Akasa. A significant capacity out of this is, of course, going international with flights to Phuket and Bangkok and all of these being reinstated or launched. The A340 is coming in, then, of course, taking the international aspect. But a significant chunk of capacity is also coming in domestic skies. And there is a high chance that they would be ahead of Akasa come December. Then again, that would go back because if they're not able to get their own planes up and running, the damp or wet leased ones are going to go back soon, and you will be at a point where you are again at this 2% market share. Can Star Air take their place? I think not yet. As long as SpiceJet survives, of course. And how they survive, I think we've seen they somehow managed in 2014. And after that, almost every 2, 3 years, they get to this near death mode and come out of it one way or another. Uh, Pretty strange that the 3,000 crores which they had have been spent or have been nearly spent, but not all the planes are up and running, and that takes away their revenue earning opportunity drastically. So what happens from here on if they survive? Logically, the decisions don't look great. I mean, 340 is a fuel guzzler. We all know that. What we don't know is what was the rate at which that they managed to secure this plane. So if the total combination of the higher fuel which it guzzles, but a very low rental, assuming that is what they got, together is equivalent to any other aircraft, then they've secured again a major lifeline because the amount of revenue which you can generate with 200, 250, 300 seats is immense, and that takes care of their immediate revenue needs for a period of time. So, multiple factors into play. How they survive remains a mystery. Uh, we'll keep talking about it on air, off air, and they're still around so many years down the line.
We've just got to know about their A340 wet lease plans. Makes one wonder where they plan to fly it. There are no tickets yet on sale as of 5th October 2025. They certainly do not need a wide body for Southeast Asia. Do you think London is on the horizon, or maybe Italy?
It could be either of it. So one of their investor presentations, which had come out last year, which they filed with the stock markets, had mentioned about their rights to the UK. So yeah, who knows? They may fly to London. Who knows? Maybe between the recording and the day this goes online, they've announced something which we don't know. So they're very unpredictable when it comes to their announcements. Last time they operated the 340 to Bangkok, and going by the numbers, which of course later came out through the regulator filings and so on, they were doing phenomenal. Did they make money on that specific route? We don't know with the 340, but of course they have this, ability to attract passengers, which all the bad news that goes around at times about SpiceJet. So it's not that they are being shunned by passengers completely. And I think that's what keeps them going, even at 2%. The load factors are healthy. So they're 2% because their capacity share is lower. It's not that people have shunned them and they're flying half their planes empty. They're still flying load factors which are average or above average in Indian skies.
The other day, I was reading in Times of India, they plan to induct 33 planes. If SpiceJet has no cash, how does it intend to induct 33 planes in 6 months? This is a head scratcher. Their domestic operations are so unstable. Why do they need to do this? Are they looking to distract, play a distraction game, distract from employee troubles and other things which are going on? Or is SpiceJet getting these and other planes to maybe lock in bilateral rights, when Dubai or Singapore open up later on? Possibly. But frankly, all of this is baffling to me.
True, absolutely. I think we have to wait for those announcements to materialize. They had made similar announcements last summer, did not materialize. Now there are announcements this winter. With SpiceJet, it's more like believe it when you see it. But yeah, they did operate the 340 and it was here for a while. They first operated it for the Hut charters, then they operated it to Bangkok. You never know, they may start flying to London or maybe some other places. So difficult to predict.
And I'm guessing if it is London, it can't be Heathrow, right? KLM gave up one of its slots to Indigo. I'm not sure who would do that for SpiceJet. It has to be Gatwick.
Probably a Gatwick or a Stansted should be possible. Though both airports are now congested, it's not that the default number two or number three like it was a couple of years ago, but you know, easier than Heathrow for sure.
Let's talk about the guy who has replaced SpiceJet for the number three position in India. Akasa has ascended to become the number three player. They are number three because of SpiceJet's well known weakness and mismanagement. But what will it take for Akasa to actually become a strong and a formidable player, a number three player in Indian aviation, Ameya?
I think for Akasa to be that strong alternative to the top two players, one is credibility. They've had these issues with pilots, they've had these issues with cancellations. They have entered a lot of markets and left them. So, what they need from now on is a credible market presence and a significant market presence. So, they need to be present in markets where, if you are number three, in the market also you are number three or number two, whichever market you are entering. You cannot be a small player in any of the market which you enter. So it has to be that significance capacity which will actually help the airline be credible. Because if you remember, they launched with Mumbai Chennai, Chennai Kochi, Bangalore Kochi. All of those routes were subsequently pulled out and then shifted and so on and so forth. So of course, when you get attractive slots at some other places, you do that. But it makes you question what was the strategy of entering that market first. If you were not sure, and how soon have you ditched that market? Would you enter that market again? India, of course, is a very last minute booking one. So it's not that people are going to be bothered about what happens next season. But when it comes to the whole sales travel agent community, where they are going to trust you based on your presence, these things matter a lot.
We all know how much you love network planning in case anybody hasn't seen the name of your website. If you're appointed as the network planning head for Akasa in 2026, what would be your top three priorities, Amaya, given the current market dynamics, the infra constraints, and of course the competitive landscape?
First, they're in very good hands. I have my friends who are network planners there, so I wouldn't really take up this or comment about it. They're in good hands. Let them be in good hands. So, keeping that aside, but if I have to look at Akasa independently from a network perspective and look at the strategic priorities and dynamics, uh, I think there are two things which are beyond their control. One is the bilateral rights, and the other is the deliveries from Boeing, and that's where the problem lies. You can plan, but if you don't get planes, nothing materializes. Again, you can plan, but but if the government doesn't release the bilateral rights, there isn't much that you can do. So with these two additional constraints, one would actually look at consolidating the presence. You know which your top markets are, which are the markets where you can take on Indigo and Air India, and then you get into these markets completely. They've gone into Darbhanga now. Good market as an alternative to Patna, one of the highly growing markets. They've been to these, the likes of Ayodhya, Varanasi, and so on in Uttar Pradesh. Again, good voluminous market where you can match capacity of others. Today, you cannot match capacity of Indigo and Air India on a Bombay Delhi. I mean, uh, between Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, all of Akasa's planes would be occupied if you have to match the capacity of Indigo and Air India on those routes. So you have to look at tier two routes where if your competition has two flights, you can add one. There are two ways of looking at it, and hopefully the readers like this, sorry, the listeners like this from Network Thoughts. I always think of the reader perspective. Sorry, so uh, it's always about capacity. So if you add excessive capacity in the market, suddenly there is a drop in demand. Demand takes time to come up. So let's take a very simple example. A market A to B has 100 seats in the market today. If you add another flight with 100 seats, your capacity has gone up, doubled, right? But your demand doesn't double the next day. Demand goes up gradually. So to get that demand, you have to discount. And that discounting will be very hard for a new player because you have an established player in the market. Now, this is true for all market. Let us say that between Mumbai and Delhi, there are 50 odd flights a day. I'm just giving a random number. If you make it 100 flights a day, even on Mumbai, Delhi, you will find it difficult to fill up 100 flights overnight because we're talking of doubling of capacity overnight. So this is true for all markets, including the best and the biggest of markets in the world. But it is even more difficult for smaller markets because the demand comes slowly on those markets. And that's where the challenge lies. So you have to look for markets where when you add a flight, it is a sizable capacity so that you can command some market share, but it is not increasing by, say, 200%. So you go to markets where there are three or four flights, where when you add a fourth flight, you are still 25% of the capacity, and it's not the second flight where the capacity has doubled from 100 to 200. So these are your niche markets where you can slowly gather that demand. Now, you cannot look at this market alone. You have to look at the station. So, let's say if you're going to uh, a station like Ayodhya, Gorakhpur, Varanasi, can you connect it from two or three places? Because from a station perspective, just one flight is not profitable enough because you're paying the same amount of money to your ground staff, sales, everybody to handle one flight. You have to find such places where you can connect from a Mumbai, a Delhi, a Bangalore, a Hyderabad, Calcutta, Chennai in future, and so on. That's where the complexity increases in network planning. And I think now, if I see this winter schedule, things have started moving on a positive side for Akasa when I start tracking their network. So hopefully things turn positive from here on. They have investments which have come in. Planes should come in as well soon. So all of that should translate and make them stronger, irrespective of what Spice does with their fleet up, down, whatever on an independent path. That's where they should be headed now.
All right. Let's move forward to Air India Express. They're clearly trying to challenge Indigo's dominance in the LCC space domestically. AI Group has clearly decided that Air India Express will be their prize warrior based on their recent network moves and Bangkok route rejigs. Do you think they have a realistic chance at success, or is this all just market noise?
I think it's the same thing like Akasa. The last 1.5 year, they've done extremely high number of changes. They've gone in some markets, pulled out of those markets, made changes to their timings. So they need some time to adjust. They need some time to be reliable in the market. They launched flights to Bangkok from Amritsar and Lucknow and Pune and Surat, and then pulled out two of those. Now making from Bangalore, they've moved a lot of flights from Kerala to Gulf, made it, Bangalore centric, moved them to the north. So all of these changes are happening. I assume that they are happening after, the whole gamut of network planning is being clubbed together with Air India. So Bangalore as the third hub, beyond Mumbai and Delhi, that third hub is going to Air India Express, and they are leading the charge there. But it will take time. So to say that we have capacity, we've gone from, sort of 28 planes to 100 plus planes in 2 years, and we can take on Indigo. Yes, good charge from the Air India group. But what matters to the market is that confidence that they're here to stay, and then support that airline and take it forward, especially in a market like India where the direct booking is much lesser than what it is in Europe or US for a low cost carrier, and is still driven by travel agents and so on. So that's where your influence starts on the end consumer and how you can influence it. So it's yes, they have a realistic chance of taking on Indigo, but it's too soon to comment on it. They'll have to perform on the consistency front very effectively to reach there.
And finally, let's talk about Team 6E Indigo. They've had to move away from their primary hub in Delhi due to geopolitical factors. But some time back, Indigo has announced it will launch flights from the national capital to Manchester in the UK from November 15th on the 789. It will also start services from Delhi to Bali and Krabi this month itself. Daily flights to Bali with a refuel halt at Bhubaneswar will commence from October 24, and 4 times a week services to Krabi will start from October 26. Frequencies on the Delhi Bangkok route will also be increased to double daily. I would also like to mention how most new European flights from Indigo were going from Bombay because of these geopolitical factors itself. How do you think Bombay is faring for them, Ameya?
I think Mumbai should be doing very well. I've been able to see what Norse reported in their filing. I mean, we still need to reconfirm that with some other numbers. But based on Norse filing, it seems their load factors are above 90% on their routes to Copenhagen and to Amsterdam and Manchester, with Copenhagen coming online on 8th October. They've already been some posts about Copenhagen being connected from Delhi. So their long haul ambitions from Delhi, irrespective of the airspace closure, also start soon. They've announced flights to London. Not just that, they announced flights specifically to London Heathrow. So my guess is that they would operate to Heathrow from Delhi and not Mumbai. A much larger market than Mumbai when it comes to Heathrow, and much more prestigious as well, a Delhi London Heathrow route. What happens when the airspace closure is no more in effect? It helps them definitely, but until then I think the belief is that one day or another this airspace closure is set to go. And I think one of the murmur was that because in Asia Cup, India and Pakistan played each other. That's one of the conditions, and then it would eventually go when Asia Cup is over. We don't know how geopolitics is going to work, but I think it will be a split between Mumbai and Delhi when that happens. Because if you look at Athens' announcement as well, they've not specified the point in India, while Asian clearly said they will operate to both Delhi and Mumbai. Asian and Indigo signed a partnership. MOU is in place for code share and so many other things. But Indigo is still silent on the point in India for Athens. So it's still closely guarded right now. probably looking at the geopolitical reasons. But I think there is no reason to believe that they will ignore Delhi per se. It's just a matter of time that things settle down.
Yeah, and just on your point about Asia Cup, going by the antics of the Pakistani administration at United Nations, I doubt if there will be any progress on relations. Nonetheless, moving on, Amir, you're right, they haven't yet mentioned which point in India will be served for Athens. What do you think about starting Athens on the A321 XLR? Can that route support both Aegean and Indigo? Aegean, I think, is supposed to start the Delhi Athens route in March 2026. I'm unsure if Delhi Athens can suddenly support so much supply at once, and that makes me think maybe Bombay to Athens is what 6C will start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is very much possible. And I think at that point of time, it will also depend on what the airspace closure situation is. If that continues in Jan, I would assume it will be Mumbai Athens, and that's how they will begin. Very much in line with very much in line with their current 4 a.m. ish departure. So you have a bank which is already there, and then go ahead. So that is what I would assume as well. And then at some later point, maybe start flights from Delhi and so on and so forth. Can Delhi or Mumbai or India as a whole sustain as many seats, as many? I currently have no idea, to be honest. And the reason is that this is a completely new route. Indians like to travel to Greece. We know that there is significant demand. The numbers say so. But how many would, there is a market stimulation factor. How many new passengers would come in because you have a good fare and a good flight which is available? We saw that when it came to Bali. Flights to Bali suddenly in demand. Pre-pandemic, you had AirAsia X operate, you had Garuda Indonesia operate to India. They couldn't sustain the flights. Oil was much lower than what it is today. They couldn't sustain the flights. Post-pandemic, you have Indian carriers flying to Bali, and the flights are going nearly full. You have IndiGo adding flights from Mumbai to Bali with a tech stop in Chennai. So they're okay to take a tech stop in Chennai, and they hope that passengers will come in because they're flying to Bali. That same thing may not be replicated to Athens because people look at the total cost. So it includes flight tickets plus food plus visa charges, the ease of visa, the stay cost, and that's where Athens doesn't rank as high as something like a Bali. So ease of visa, we all know the issues with Schengen, and the time it takes, the amount of paperwork it takes as compared to landing in Indonesia, getting your passport stamped and just getting out in 15 minutes. So uh, those things will matter, and that's where we'll have to really, see. The way out, airlines will adjust frequency. So they'll not go the way they have currently doing. They'll probably go with a 3 times a week kind of thing to ensure that they still sustain, gradually built up on the capacity on the route.
Couple of months back, we saw how Indigo was almost welcomed into SkyTeam with a glitzy function at the IATA AGM in Delhi. I say almost because nothing is official yet, but it damn sure looked like a done deal to me. How do you assess the potential impact of a deeper code share or a joint venture agreement between an Indian carrier like Indigo and an European airline like Air France KLM? What would be its impact on network resilience and transfer volumes, according to you? Do you see something like that possible in the near future, Ameya?
No, I don't see that in the near future. The only time I would see this happen is if and when Indigo gets into a financial crunch. That's when they'll typically look at such kind of ventures. Otherwise, I don't see this happening. They would rather love their independence to be, able to partner with multiple carriers, say Asian Star Alliance carrier. They're happy to partner. You have these, one world carriers with whom they partner. Turkish, again, Star Alliance, they partner. So they would rather love their independence this way and the ability to have this lead on the domestic skies than actually get into some sort of JV or partnership with this whole Air France, KLM, Virgin Atlantic Delta thing. Why I said financial is that I've also noticed that in their annual report, they said eventually they aim to have 40% of their fleet on finance lease and not on the current operational lease. That's building your balance sheet, stronger and stronger, because in aviation there will always be a rainy day. Uh, Aviation is one of those businesses which are more cyclical than others, and when you have this kind of stronger balance sheet, at that point of time, you can use these finance lease planes to actually do a sale and lease back and raise cash, right? If at all there comes a time where you have challenges with, funding your expansion, that is when they would look at it. In immediate future, obviously 6 to 9 months or even next 5 years, I don't see Indigo anywhere close to that. They have a very strong balance sheet, and thus it doesn't help them to look at getting into a partnership which actually constrains them at this point of time when they are looking to actually expand. Now, also, they don't have a lot of bargaining chips right now. 5 years down the line, you see the 350s crisscrossing Europe, possibly entering non-stop flights to US. Now you are in a better commanding position to negotiate than what you are today. So when your balance sheet supports your current operations and immediate future, you would rather wait to get much stronger. In the end, in any sort of negotiations, the stronger you are, the better deal you are going to get. See, when TAP is in the market, when SAS was in the market, when all of SN Brussels was in the market, what was their position and how these groups went, or even Iberia, how these groups went and tried getting them, snatching them away from each other, and then forming those ventures, or when Etihad wanted to form this whole Etihad alliance across regions, they had to pick up airlines which weren't in the best of health. So there wasn't much negotiation possible. They had to, agree to whatever was on offer. Today, when you are smaller in Europe and just potential on paper, your negotiation power is much smaller than what it would be when you have your own 350s crisscrossing points in Europe and say, I can get those passengers to you versus I'm getting those passengers to you, changes the whole dynamics when it comes to negotiation. So I think 6 to 9 months, definitely not. I wouldn't really think of that happening anytime soon.
Just to be clear, I was referring to joint venture agreements that carriers on both sides of the Atlantic and even the Pacific have with each other. They are able to sign and align on routes, on schedules, even pricing, I think. They have antitrust immunity to maximize profitability for all carriers involved in that arrangement. So you see that happening with Indigo once the 350s come in and are crisscrossing continents, right?
Yes, something like a metal neutral pack possibly as the
Yeah.
start,
Yeah.
but of course after the 350 comes in, because today you are at a place where you are still having these 6 month or 1 year approvals for the North Atlantic Dreamliner. So no carrier, I mean, would want to really get into a deal like this without having a visibility over the next 1 year, because that's what you have on paper, that the Norse aircraft would be with you for 6 months or 1 year, and then it goes for renewal. Even if you have assurance that it would get renewed, never say never what would happen. So when you have your own aircraft, it's there with you. It's very easy to make those deals. It's also a regulatory nightmare to have a North Atlantic operation on a 6C code which is operating to Europe, where North Atlantic is registered, and do this metal neutral pact, and multiple challenges which come into on the regulatory side. So all of this happening 2027 and beyond.
With NDC, new distribution capability, gaining traction globally, how prepared are Indian airlines to move beyond traditional GDS based revenue management? What opportunities does direct distribution create for network optimization?
Well, NDC has no impact on the network optimization for sure, more on the distribution side. And when we look at distribution, NDC has been tried by a couple of players, including Vistara when they came out with NDC, but hasn't gained traction the way it should have ideally. If you look at the global companies, also some of the ones which started NDC were eventually acquired by the biggies like Sabre and Amadeus, who have sort of duopoly or so on the GDS system. So it hasn't really moved the in the same proportion in which it made the noise when it came up. So Indian carriers in current investment cycles, I think still time to go to get into this, especially when the direct booking percentage is much lower than what it is in other parts of the world for the LCC part. The other thing is IndiGo is becoming more of a value carrier and moving towards an FSC as compared to a true LCC, and the others are just too small to even get into this mode of trying and executing. There are other priorities which they would want to look at.
Ameya, give me one contrarian call about India's aviation industry that you believe will be true in the next, let's say, 18 to 24 months, but that most industry observers will probably dismiss today.
You know what? I would hope that this doesn't come true, but I don't think that the kind of induction which is being announced of an average of one per week by both Air India and Indigo is going to come true. There are going to be challenges from the aircraft OEM, infrastructure, and the people, pilot, crew, that kind of perspective. So I don't see that happening, especially 2025, where we are right now, to 2027. We are talking of 100 odd planes by Indigo being inducted and a similar number by the Air India group. I don't see that happening. We've had multiple announcements on those lines across airlines on how big and rapid the induction plan is, and this is something which I think many people believe would happen, but I have not believed. At the same time, there isn't as much demand to take over this capacity instantly. So, irrespective of which airline goes down, which airline loses market share, and as I said, I would, be happy to be proven right as long as the industry does well and everybody benefits. But my personal, sort of calculations don't, end up with this happening at all. So we'll know in maybe a year down the line when you have the 101 for 101st episode, and hopefully you invite me again for the next leg of the journey. We'll discuss this. I'll make a note of this point.
I'm not going to wait another year or so to invite you back, my friend. But do you think there will be a demand if there is relaxation or additional frequencies in India, Dubai, or Singapore bilaterals? Do you think those markets cannot absorb additional demand?
Those markets will absorb demand, no doubt, but how much? Because if you look at the rights which have come under this government in the last 11 years, they of course have been far and few. One. The second thing is whatever increase has been limited in terms of percentage. So we don't expect something like 65,000 seats per week become 1 lakh seats per week to Dubai. If at all there is an increase, it will be modest, moderate, and over a period of time. Like with Singapore, no bilateral will become double overnight. And when I say this, again, you have certain number of planes which are dedicated to a route. Uh, they will only increase by 10 to 15%. Even if there is demand, it's only as much that can be increased. So, demand is one part of the story. The other is what actually happens on ground when it comes to increasing bilaterals. And we all know over a period of time, bilaterals is not just an aviation subject. Across the world, it is more of a external affairs or geopolitical thing. And there is a lot of give and take which happens when it comes to bilaterals. It's no more what it was probably in the 70s or 80s. Post that, every country in the world actually looks at it as a give and take, and uh, that's how it will happen with us as well.
Ameya, always such a delight to speak with you and learn from you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And it's always a pleasure to speak to you and be on this podcast and then get the reviews from people on what are the thoughts. So thanks again and wish you good luck for 51 to 100. So that's the next leg.
And that's a wrap on another incredible episode of the Indian AvGeek with the one and only Ameya Joshi, our hat trick guest who never fails to deliver aviation gold. And for those who can't get of Ameya's insights, make sure to follow his incredible work over at networkthoughts.com. Next Sunday, the Indian AvGeek features a special guest on episode 10. Listen out for that. And as usual, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode of the Indian AvGeek with your fellow AvGeeks. Ameya is at Khabri_Lal on X and I am at Vishal1Mehra. Happy to have your feedback. With that, keep your tray tables up, your seatbelts fastened. I wish you well and happy flying, my friends.